fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
While we're talking about some good high-end options, it's pretty pedestrian once you get through about 25 or so running backs. And so you got to be so much more mindful that the cliff does take place in your draft at running back, much more so than it does at wide receiver, where there are 40, 45 options that you could talk yourself into having pretty good seasons this year.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I was that confused trying to figure out why Cameron Young isn't as good as he should be, because we've seen all the flashes. Like at some point of his career, he's been elite at something. Like he's been elite at putting this year. He's been an elite iron player. He's been an elite driver of the golf ball. So check out this chart I had to get.
We got a chart.
Look at this chart that I had to come up with.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
An HRR, parlay, a combo that you want to do. I generally prefer away teams and players that hit at the top of the lineup or in the top half, just because you are guaranteed just that extra plate appearance here or there. How many times, throughout the season, I've been like, listen, if this guy gets on, he will have one more at bat in the ninth inning. And if he doesn't get there, there. If you just take them that place higher, you're going to be in a spot to cash that bag.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be streaming with you on our new edition of the show this afternoon. We got some great guests here on the program. We'll get into week 2 of the NFL preseason. Some big news, including a couple of injuries and some players sitting out in this week of the preseason. We'll get to the very latest as Jacob Kamaker joins us courtesy of Sporting News. Also, fantasy football season is coming. Joe Pisapia will join us for approximately 30 minutes. That's in about an hour from now if you're watching us. In addition, we've got Rob Donaldson talking some baseball as well. So stay with us here on the grid as we got you covered with everything happening in the National Football League, Major League Baseball, and of course the world of sports betting as well. Let's start off with a news story from the National Football League that involves a former NFL coach who ironically is now working for Barstool at the moment. John Gruden, you may remember him, head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, was fired by the Raiders, and now there's a lawsuit that's going back and forth between him and the National Football League, and an arbiter has ruled in favor of John Gruden. Here's the very latest right now, that the lawsuit's attempt to move the case into arbitration overseen by Commissioner Roger Goodell was unconscionable as ruled by the Nevada Supreme Court. The court emphasized that the NFL Constitution does not apply to former employees like Gruden, rejecting the idea that Gruden could arbitrate a case in which he was named a defendant. So Goodell cannot get involved in this case specifically to rule on whether or not Gruden had some improprieties while as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Needless to say, this could pave the way eventually for Gruden to return as a coach in the National Football League in the future. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, the beat goes on at Los Angeles Rams camp, and as of now, there is no clarity whatsoever on starting quarterback Matthew Stafford. Let's not get it twisted. He was supposed to return Monday to take some limited practice, and he did not. As of right now, Stafford still has not practiced with the team at all in this training camp and likely will not play in week 2 of the NFL preseason. So what is the latest and what exactly is going on with Stafford and his bad back, which has plagued him now for the last couple of years? Here's head coach Sean McVay on Stafford's potential return to the field.
I'm sure the first question you guys will have is about Matthew. And, like we've said, we're going to be flexible and fluid. I think more than anything, I feel for Matthew because of how much he wants to be out there and feel good. Ultimately, what ended up happening, had a great workout, felt good, but then, come in today and it doesn't feel great. And so didn't think that was the right decision to be able to push him. We've kind of always talked about flexibility, being fluid with some of the plans. And I think more than anything, I feel for a guy that, I really care about that wants to be out there more than anything else. We're going to be smart. But he didn't feel good enough, and we didn't think it was the right thing to do based on, how he woke up feeling today. Yeah, he just didn't, it didn't respond the way that you wanted it to. He felt, when he was out here working out, it was great. And then, it's like anything else, let's communicate. We all know there's nobody that's tougher than this guy. And so we are going to still be safe. But I think more than anything, it's like, he wants to be out there more than anybody. His teammates can't wait for him to be out there. But I'm going to defer to, Reggie and Dr. Watkins, and then listening to Matthew's feedback, because we just felt like, it wasn't in alignment with how he was feeling to progress accordingly.
And the starting quarterback would be Jimmy Garoppolo, and no word on whether or not he'll play in this week's game. Of course, the Rams cannot afford to lose him. Then they're down to their third string and haven't even started the season. Same could be said for the Green Bay Packers. Don't expect to see Jordan Love on the field this week or even in week 3 of the preseason, but it does look like week 1 is in play. Why? Because he underwent a procedure on his left thumb, and they're hopeful to have him back at practice next week. There's no reason to rush Love, of course, in the preseason, but good news, it is a left hand, not a right. Meanwhile, Raheem Morris told reporters this morning, get this, that Michael Penix Jr. not going to play in this week's preseason game, and usually quarterbacks don't play in week 3 either. Also, Kirk Cousins unlikely to play too. This leaves the door open for the Tennessee Titans potentially to go into Atlanta and win a preseason game, although the line right now currently on the FanDuel Sportsbook, Tennessee -4.5. Pittsburgh Steelers' Cam Hayward has hinted that he is not going to play this season under his current contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He wants a new one and has pretty much said it loud and clear, including yesterday after practice.
Looking for my contract to be addressed. Honestly, looking to be valued in my eyes when I look around and, at my position. I think I'm 22nd as a D-Tech on 36 as a D lineman. And, I know what I bring to this team and what I'm capable of on and off the field. And so it's hard for me to, after the year I've had, to really justify playing at the number I'm playing at. I understand I signed a contract last year. But to be completely honest with you, when I signed that, I told them, when I have an all-pro year, expecting me to come back. And you can look at the contract and see what it was, but I think everybody kind of giggled a little bit, but in my heads, I used it as motivation to go out there and prove it.
Although Kalen DeBoer at the University of Alabama has not discussed it, it looks like starting quarterback is Ty Simpson for the Crimson Tide going into the season. He's been the backup at Alabama the last couple of years. Meanwhile, Shohei Ohtani in new alleged hot water. Remember the last time it was sports betting. This time it's a Hawaii developer and a real estate broker who are suing Ohtani and agent Nez Balello, alleging that they were wrongfully pushed out of a $240 million luxury housing project on the Big Island. The lawsuit says that Ohtani was brought in for promotional purposes, but he and his agent used their influence to pressure their business partner into firing the original team. It is a lawsuit. There's money involved, and Ohtani makes a lot of money, so this is not surprising. Meanwhile, what is surprising is the Los Angeles Angels just dominate the Los Angeles Dodgers again, 4-0 yesterday. They beat them every time they played them this season. How about that? Zach Neto hit 2 home runs. Ohtani did homer, 7-4 win for the Angels. How about that over the Dodgers? Meanwhile, it looks like the San Francisco Giants are just about cooked. Padres win yesterday 4-1. Yu Darvish, 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts. The Giants made a big acquisition in Rafael Devers. You may remember a couple of months ago, their offense has gone south ever since, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Here's Bob Melvin on that.
You guys have a 25 strikeouts and 1 walk over the last 2 losses. What are you seeing from the at-bats that you'd like to see improve?
We're getting beat. I mean, a lot of fastballs tonight. Darvish is usually a guy that spins the ball a little bit and threw a lot of heaters. So good command of it. Probably best game he's pitched this year. And I think at times we try to get a little too aggressive when we're a team that makes pitchers work and draw some walks and get some deeper counts.
Logan was so effective, efficient through those first 6 innings. What really flipped against the bottom third of the lineup in the 7th?
Just got some pitches in the middle of the plate. Rafi comes back, ties it 1-1. We feel pretty good about where we are. He's pitching really good again, using all his pitches. They're off balance, a lot of balls on the ground, which you typically see when Webby's good. And then all of a sudden they got on him pretty quickly.
Best kept secret in baseball, meanwhile, is not a secret anymore. The Milwaukee Brewers are the best team in the game, and it's not particularly close. They win their 10th straight game yesterday. Jose Quintana, 6 innings pitched, and Brewers beat the Pirates 7-1. Kyle Schwarber hit his 42nd home run for the Phillies, free agent, by the way, after the season, as the Phillies beat the Reds 4-1 as well. Alex Bregman returns to Houston yesterday and didn't go his way exactly, although he was fine. The Astros hold off the Red Sox 7-6. Ramon Urias, Chas McCormick each hit home runs. Roman Anthony struck out to end the game. Will Warren helped the Yankees to a victory, 6 2/3, and the Yankees beat the Twins by a final of 6-2. Finally, the Texas Rangers get a win. Jake Berger with an RBI single in the 10th inning. Rangers were down 5-0 against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they came back to win. Nathan Eovaldi's having a great month, 6-0, .47 earned run average in the month of July. Good for the Rangers to step back in this thing. All right, coming up next, we get to the very latest in golf. Justin Rose wins the St. Jude Championship. Keith Stewart will weigh in on that and get a preview of this upcoming tournament, FedEx Cup. We'll be right back on the NewsWire.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're going to bring in Keith Stewart. He's getting ready for the BMW Championship. But before we do that, very big win, of course, on the tour, Keith, for Justin Rose, who ends up taking the St. Jude Championship. I know you want to weigh in on that, and we definitely have to weigh in, unfortunately, on Tommy Fleetwood as well. But before we do all that, Keith, I want you to take a listen, I'm sure you saw this already, to a very thoughtful response on Rose after his win.
This one felt quite stoic, in the sense of determination, execution. There were kind of a few different agendas, playing with Tommy, playing in great spirits in that group. and then kind of turning into the playoff and then being that dynamic as there always is with USA, Europe, obviously Ryder Cup around the corner. But I just felt like I just stayed really calm with it all and felt very much just one foot in front of another. Just didn't really, so all of the other stuff that was coming at me, I just felt like I really deflected a lot. And because I did such a good of deflecting a lot, I think I deflected a lot of the emotion and the joy of the actual winning moment. So it was quite, in some ways, quite a calm win. Even though I think when I look back at it, it was pretty it was fireworks. There were some great shots and birdies and putts and a lot to look back on. And I'm going to enjoy watching this one back, if I'm honest. But in the moment, I was pretty flatline.
All right, let's bring in Keith here. And Keith, he did allude to one part of a conversation, which leads us to our next, as he did make mention of poor Tommy Fleetwood in that conversation. And I definitely think that, look, Rose is going to want a championship. Rose was undone in one of the majors earlier this year, so, he gets it. But he did make mention of Tommy Fleetwood, who I think we all thought going into the day had an excellent chance of winning this one, but it just keeps eluding it.
It's interesting, Craig. A lot of times people always look to the performance as a gauge of whether or not a guy is tight or whether or not a guy is nervous. Boy, you could really see it on Tommy Fleetwood's face. And then when it comes to the decision-making process, he is really indecisive. And that's one of those things that when you're out there playing professional golf, that, in a sport where you get to think about every shot rather than just react to someone attacking the hoop, or, maybe you're a D-back, backpedaling and a guy cuts or something, very quickly. Tommy Fleetwood has all the time in the world to think about that approach shot on 16 into the par 5, and then the chip shot, of course, the approach on 17. It just seems to me like his process has to be updated because his game is gone next level this year. I mean, he has a zillion top 20s every time he plays. He won back in Dubai, back in January. I mean, he's doing all the right things, but there's obviously some sort of thought in his mind right here that he needs to use a specific process in order to get over. We saw Cam Young do it at the Wyndham. We know Tommy can do it. He's that talented of a guy to do it. The time will come, but man, this one was pretty brutal.
Yeah, no, it was, nothing that anybody wants to see happen, especially to a guy like Tommy, without a doubt. But the BMW Championship, as you can see, that's where Keith is at. He's got the nice step and repeat behind him, looking good with the green. Speaking of the green, guess who's back again for this one? It's Scotty Scheffler. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, from looking at the odds here on the FanDuel Sportsbook, I believe this is the biggest favorite he's been in any tournament all season. I have not seen him down to plus 225 or plus 230 in any tournament, and that's where he's at. Rory is plus 750, Xander 18-1. There's Tommy at 20-1, Ludwig Oberg at 22-1 as well. But I know you've got some news on this, and so I wonder if this will affect anything.
So, Craig, as we went back to Memphis last week, on Sunday, we all know that Ted Scott, Scotty Scheffler's longtime caddy, certainly during all of this 3-year run, did not caddy for Scotty on Sunday. He had a fill-in caddy for the day. And, I think that had part to play in Scotty in determining the outcome of that tournament, because he finishes in third place, just one shot out of the playoff. And he was walking off his own yardages and everything. Well, as it turns out, when I got here on property today, the first question I asked is Ted Scott going to be here this week? And PGA Tour comms let me know that he is not. He does not plan to be here. He's going to use Chris Kirk's caddy, who was there on Sunday, finished 51st on the points list. Mike Cromie is going to caddy for him for this week. So, all thoughts and prayers go out to Ted Scott with whatever he's dealing with, the personal issue. But for sure, as you're handicapping this event, and you're right, that plus 225 is a low number. We've seen some plus 240s by the time Thursday morning rolls around, but a plus 225 and getting lower. Now with this news with Scotty that we broke this morning, absolutely it's a consideration that the dream team is not together for this 50-man shootout.
Yeah, a lot of underrated handicapping goes into the caddy. People don't even consider that. Of course, the majority of this is the player, no doubt, but the caddy a big factor there. All right, so let's take a look at the latest FedEx Cup standings and how things were affected this past week. JJ Spawn definitely with something to say about that, but Scotty Scheffler is still plus 225 to take care of the FedEx Cup Championship. Rory McIlroy is 6-1. Spawn moves up to 30-1 after his great day, and Justin Thomas 18-1 as well. That's our focus, Keith, as we head into the weekend.
Absolutely, Craig. And at this point, I would still pump the brakes on Scotty as far as the FedEx Cup Championship. I think that this is the point right now that if you've got a heavy lean this week for the BMW Championship, this is a bomber's paradise where they're going to have part of a putting contest. If you've got a guy like a Cam Young or somebody like that you feel like can roll through this thing, then that would be the time to hit that market, because once they win this week, then certainly that number is going to get cut way shorter as we head into Atlanta, and then there's only 30 guys left. As far as playing Scotty at this point, 250, 225 to win the FedEx Cup, and then another 250 this week to win the BMW Championship. For me, I'm probably going to go without the Scheffler market again this week. I do feel like the Ted Scott thing is a problem, but boy, oh boy, this golf course really suits Scotty Scheffler's skill set. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, let's end with this, Keith. J.J. Spawn's been a big surprise on the tour this season, of course, with the great finish at the U.S. Open, and then, of course, over the weekend. I mean, he's getting hot at the right time.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And one of the very unique things about the FedEx Cup playoffs since they started back in 2007 is that in the 18 editions, we've had 8 multiple winners. So don't be surprised if the guys that were hot last week get them in there for a top 10, top 5, because I think J.J. Spawn and Justin Rose, they're all feeling good. I would hit those guys again in the placement market. If you feel really good about them coming back, it could be the 9th time we have a double winner.
All right. Great stuff, Keith. Enjoy your week at the BMW Championship. We'll check in next week. Thanks again. Coming up next, it's the SportsGrid Sound Off. College football just a couple of weeks away. On Stanford, Ohio State, and the University of Florida. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be right back.
Vegas knows how to celebrate. If you're headed to Vegas for your birthday, plan ahead to get all the birthday freebies the city has to offer. Just by showing your ID, you could get free cash play, scratch cards, drinks, and food at various venues on the Strip. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you draft a quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shador's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Joey Ohtani's only seen him 7 times, 7 at-bats. He's got a home run against him. I've been pretty good at jumping in and out with Ohtani. I don't take him to hit a home run every day. The odds are good enough tonight, Scott, at plus 230 to entice me. I've got a bet on Ohtani's season home run prop at 43.5, which, he's nearly there.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
He was the first of the wide receiver selected. For some reason, he didn't get the same kind of publicity some other guys in the past have gotten, but I don't get it because I look at the scenario, I look at the talent, and I say he's everything you're going to want here. In PPR leagues, I think he's going to approach 100 catches this year as a rookie, and that's going to blow people's minds, but I think he's going to be that good.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. New York Jets making an announcement on a couple of injuries ahead of their game with the Giants this coming week. Tyrod Taylor, the backup quarterback to Justin Fields of the Jets, is going to be out. Minor surgery, probably a couple of weeks, be ready for the regular season. Also, wide receiver Alan Lazard going to miss a couple of weeks too, so bump up all of the other wide receivers on the Jets going into the week. All right, now let's get to college football. We've got Stanford to talk about here, Ohio State, and the University of Florida. All 3 teams getting ready for the upcoming college football season. We'll do it for you here on the SportsGrid Sound Off. You may remember Andrew Luck, who played at the University of Stanford, retired early in the NFL. He's now the general manager, by the way, helping out with all those NIL deals at the University of Stanford. And he brought in Frank Reich, his former coach with the Indianapolis Colts, to be the head coach. Reich is getting off to a good start. All systems go in practice, and talked about getting ready for their upcoming game later this month.
Yeah, this is the home stretch. We really need to lock in this week. I think the players are dialed in. If today's any indication, that's a definite yes. We came out and kind of had a jog through today, after a pretty heavy day on Saturday, and felt like we were locked in. We know that this kind of last week of training camp before we get into prep for Hawaii is critical, and we got to take advantage of every rep out there. Yeah, it'll be the end of this week. We'll finish, this will kind of finish all of our preparation stuff for the season, and we won't really, formally get into Hawaii until the beginning of next week. We got plenty of time. We've been introducing things here or there. Coaches have been getting ahead, but really we just want the players locked in on who we're going to be, right? So the most important thing is who are we going to be? And so this is another week to take a step for that.
Stanford having a season in transition, fair to say. Never a season in transition at Ohio State University, and all eyes square on the Buckeyes and Ryan Day. They play arguably the best first game of the college football weekend, noon Eastern, August the 30th, against the University of Texas. Wow, what a battle that's going to be. Here's Ryan Day on their preparation as they close in on the home stretch.
Sometimes it's hard to tell. I think that we're growing. I think we still have work to do. There were things that I felt like we definitely improved with last week. There's still things that, we got to get fixed. We got to get addressed. Coming out of the weekend, I felt like we were able to identify some guys that built some depth. Some position battles are still going to go on. This is a big week to take the next step for us. And I think the effort's there. I think the overall execution's got to improve. Each side of the ball has their things that they need to grow upon. And, this is kind of the last week to do that, because after this week, we'll have our scrimmage on Saturday. And it's not just, complete Texas from there on, but it's getting close. So, we're still in the middle of it. There was a lot of positives, but obviously some things I guess the best way to put it is in the first 9 practices, we got a lot done, but we got a lot to do.
Meanwhile, in Gainesville at the University of Florida, the Gators are getting ready for another big season with expectations. Billy Napier, under fire at the beginning of last season, finished very well. Florida opens up against LIU Labor Day weekend, a little different than last year when they opened up against the Miami Hurricanes. Here's Billy Napier on this final week or week of training camp as they get ready for their first showdown.
Okay, I think our team, this is a critical week. It's a really, really important week in training camp. We have to do our best work this week. And, it's one thing to practice like you want to win. It's another thing to practice like you want to win a championship, right? So the level of detail this week has got to ramp up. The quality of the execution has to improve. But in general, I think that this group has taken the right approach. I've been very pleased. We had Shep in here last week. He did a great job. He talked about getting the big rocks in early. And you guys have all seen that video online, the viral video. And I think it's important for our players to evaluate themselves and have the self-discipline to put together a plan for their day, plan out their work and then go work their plan. I think the chemistry of this team has impressed me, and overall like the attitude of the team.
Let's end with one note from the NFL. James Cook, who Sean McDermott alluded to practicing a little bit more today, indeed is back at practice, maybe closing in on a new contract. We will see. The latest in the NFL with USA Today's Jacob Kamaker coming up next. We'll talk quarterbacks in Los Angeles and Cleveland. Look ahead to this week in the NFL preseason. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be right back.
You have to imagine it'll be Rory and Tommy. So that is just such a strong foursomes pairing. And then I look over here at the Americans. I'm like, golly, if Patrick Cantlay, they just need him to make the team because you got Scotty and Russell. If Xander's going out, you have to him and Pat have been so good in the foursomes. Bryson's going to have to play. Who's he going to play with?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Tigers aren't out of first place. They're still in first place, Tom, by 5 games over the Cleveland Guardians. But you see, last 10 games, Detroit Tigers 5-5. Last 10 games, Guardians. Winners of 9 of 11 games, winners of 5 straight games. They're only 5 back now than the Kansas City Royals, sitting at 8.5 back. The Detroit Tigers, so much fun this year, but now facing adversity with a month and a half left in the season.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
He is not Derrick Henry. He is not one of those special backs in that sense. A really good one that's been outstanding in fantasy for quite some time. But you can also hear the buzz recently about it being more of a split backfield. And if that's so, then Aaron Jones' value takes a hit, Jordan Mason's value goes up, and there's an opportunity at some point if Aaron Jones misses time where you can see Jordan Mason take that backfield over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you drafted quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shadur's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Great to have Jacob Kamiker from USA Today. Read all of his columns and updates on the NFL preseason over at usatoday.com, and you can follow him on social media for the very latest as well. Let's bring Jacob in. He's going to be along for the ride with us another season. Jacob, great to have you back here. I know we had you last week and pretty much a weekly occurrence that we're going to have you. And let's start off with, I think, the biggest where there's smoke, there's fire story in the NFL. I made this clear on the show a few weeks ago, Jacob. I've mentioned this so many different times. I'll mention it again until people just start throwing things at me. I remember a Super Bowl where some guy named Todd Gurley was totally fine and going to play, and he ended up on a bike for the entire Super Bowl. This is courtesy of Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. So forgive me if I don't believe a word of what's going on here with this Matthew Stafford stuff. I mean, Jacob, I personally, I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think he's going to play at the start of the season. I think something more is going on here, cranky back or not. Did not practice the way that he wanted to. Maybe McVay was upfront about that, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start the season for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're at that point yet, but I would be very concerned if I'm the Los Angeles Rams about Matthew Stafford missing time. I mean, it's strange when you hear a head coach like McVay say, hey, the plan is to have him practice on Monday, and then Stafford not come out and practice. I know he's been working off to the side fields. He's just got something a little bit wrong with his back. It doesn't sound like it's a major issue, but back injuries have a way of lingering. We've seen Stafford get banged up in previous seasons before. We've seen him have shoulder problems, elbow problems, and he's played through them before. He's a really tough guy. I think during his first or second season, one time he broke his collarbone at the very end of a game and still threw the game-winning 2-point conversion against the Browns. That's burned into my memory. So he's a guy who toughs it out and plays through things. So it wouldn't shock me if he tries to play through this back thing. But if it keeps acting up and he keeps not being able to practice, then the Rams might have to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. And, Jimmy Garoppolo is a fine backup, but you're just not going to have the same ceiling as a team with him in as opposed to Matthew Stafford. So if you're the Rams, you better be hoping that Matthew Stafford can get healthy at some point. And if he is unhealthy to start the season, your better path is probably to sit him and try to get him ready for, the second half of the season, because Jimmy G can keep you afloat, but I don't think he's the type of quarterback that will win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and maybe it is jumping the gun a little bit here. It's just I'm more worried about the unknown than the known, and the known is that Jordan Love had surgery on his left hand, not his throwing hand, so he's going to miss a couple of weeks, and this may linger into what looks like week 2 and week 3 of the NFL preseason. Then there's a week off, Jacob. So my concern level for him, honestly, is less than it is for Stafford, because I'm just aware of what the surgery is and what's being done to it, and it's not an impactful situation for him. He's just going to have to wear something while he takes snaps.
Yeah, and Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Green Bay Packers today, basically said the team's not overly concerned. They expect him to be ready for week 1. He might even return to practice next week. I don't know that will happen. I think they'll, approach it with caution. But where that's also not his throwing hand, the only thing that will be really impacted is his grip. And obviously, if he hits the hand while running or getting sacked or something else, that could aggravate it. But it's a less concerning injury. Now, if it was to his throwing thumb, we'd be talking about, how is he going to grip the ball? How is he going to rip it downfield? But non-throwing hand, just less concerning, seems like a mild thing. But overall, there's a little level of concern for Jordan Love just because he played through some injuries last year. I think he hurt his knee in the preseason or in the season opener in Brazil last year, and he played through it, but he also, missed a couple weeks and probably should have been out longer. So I think the Packers will be a little more cautious with him during the preseason, but I would expect him to be back on track for week 1. And if anything, early in the season, we might see him drop a ball 1 or 2 more times than he normally would, just because his left hand is a little off.
I think all that's fair. All right, now let's get to the story of the week last week in the preseason. I don't think it's going to be a story this week. It appears Dylan Gabriel is going to play a lot more than Shedeur Sanders. But Sanders did have a great week 1, 14 of 23, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he made the most of the opportunity, which is kind of all you're looking for at this point. And, look, you can't go off 1 week, but certainly trending in the right direction. I don't think Cleveland would love to start Joe Flacco all season long. They'd love to see Kenny Pickett get back to who he was a couple of years ago, or Dylan Gabriel step up, or even Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I thought Sanders looked really good. I watched that entire game. He just threw the ball really well. He didn't have any turnovers. That's kind of what surprised me. I just thought, first game jitters, he might come out and take a couple of risks that he probably shouldn't. But throughout the game, he demonstrated pretty good accuracy. And on one of his touchdowns, he fit the ball into a perfect window between 2 defenders, hit his receiver in stride. So I came away very impressed with what he was able to do. I think this is going to make, the people who are looking at that quarterback room and saying, there's no way they keep 4 quarterbacks, right? I think anyone worried about Shedeur Sanders getting cut now can say, all right, yeah, he's played well enough this one game to make them keep him. Now, does that mean he's going to move up the depth chart? I'm not sure about that yet. I think they want to see Dylan Gabriel in action, see how he does, see if Sanders can replicate his performance in more limited reps. So I think that battle between those 2 rookie quarterbacks will be interesting to watch this week if both get on the field. But if both look really, really good, then I think the question becomes, well, what happens to Kenny Pickett? Because all of a sudden you're talking about, where does he stand in this quarterback room? He's still dealing with that hamstring injury. He hasn't been a full participant in practice. So I think Pickett all of a sudden is going from a guy who I would say was probably safe in the quarterback room to saying, hey, if these 2 rookies outshine him, all of a sudden there are a little more questions about him. But ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that the Browns are probably going to try to keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster. I still have my doubts about whether that will happen all season long, just because of the ramifications of injuries at other positions. But I do think that Shedeur Sanders' strong performance has certainly helped him and given him a very clear path to a spot on the Browns' 53-man roster.
Yeah, I would agree. And they could IR Pickett for a bit and then bring him back. The Ravens, by the way, still favorites, minus 150 to win the division, 155, followed by the Bengals, Steelers, and the Browns. So nothing, thank goodness, changed much from watching week 1 of the NFL preseason there. All right, here's maybe one opinion that has changed for people who watched the Giants this past week, which was that Jackson Dart, who played in the game and played pretty extensively, looked pretty good. Now, I watched some of this game, and look, he made some bad throws, needed to sneak the ball in a couple of times. But it does beg the question, Jacob, really, what are the Giants trying to accomplish here by having Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston even on the roster at quarterback? With it looks like they got to get Dart in there eventually, whether it's week 3 or week 5 or week 10. I mean, I don't know what their plan is. But he looked good enough to me to move that timeline a little bit up. And I guess I wonder, Jacob, in 2 weeks, are we going to hear that they cut one of these guys, Wilson or Winston, and end up just going with Dart to start?
I could see that happening. I think if they're going to cut or get rid of a player, it would be more likely to be Jameis Winston, just because he's sort of sitting in that he's clearly the backup to Russell Wilson right now. But if Jackson Dart outplays him, coaching staff could justify saying, all right, we're going to get rid of him and keep Tommy DeVito as our third stringer because he's cheaper. But I look at that whole situation as to why they signed Wilson and why they signed Winston. Brian Daboll obviously needs to win this year. He is on the hottest of hot seats that I can remember. When the owner basically comes out and says, we're not happy with the job that's been done, but we just don't want to move on from the coach right now because we haven't given other guys enough time in this position, is what he felt like. That sort of is a strange dynamic. So we all know that the Giants are going to be really evaluating Daboll. So he needed a guy like Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston with the experience just to come in there, and then they wanted someone with upside. So if things don't go well with those guys, they could throw Dart out there and see if he can be kind of the Hail Mary to save their job. So that's what I think's happening there. But Dart looked pretty good too. It was a little like Sanders. He had a few more inaccurate throws, I would say, throughout his performance. But hey, you're still going to be encouraged after seeing him look pretty good in his preseason debut.
All right, Jacob, great stuff. As always, enjoy week 2 of the preseason. We'll catch up again next week. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
All right, thanks, Craig. Take care and talk to you soon.
All right, Jacob Kamaker, courtesy of Sporting USA Today. Almost got it wrong. You usually do that once every 5 or 6 weeks. USA Today. Coming up next, Rob Donaldson joins us. We'll break down today's Major League Baseball slate. Don't go away.
You have to imagine it'll be Rory and Tommy. So that is just such a strong foursomes pairing. And then I look over here at the Americans. I'm like, golly, if Patrick Cantlay, they just need him to make the team because you got Scotty and Russell. If Xander's going out, you have to him and Pat have been so good in the foursomes. Bryson's going to have to play. Who's he going to play with?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Tigers aren't out of first place. They're still in first place, Tom, by 5 games over the Cleveland Guardians. But you see, last 10 games, Detroit Tigers 5-5. Last 10 games, Guardians. Winners of 9 of 11 games, winners of 5 straight games. They're only 5 back now than the Kansas City Royals, sitting at 8.5 back. The Detroit Tigers, so much fun this year, but now facing adversity with a month and a half left in the season.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
He is not Derrick Henry. He is not one of those special backs in that sense. A really good one that's been outstanding in fantasy for quite some time. But you can also hear the buzz recently about it being more of a split backfield. And if that's so, then Aaron Jones' value takes a hit, Jordan Mason's value goes up, and there's an opportunity at some point, if Aaron Jones misses time, where you can see Jordan Mason take that backfield over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you draft a quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shadur's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Rob Donaldson is with us from Underdog to go over the latest in Major League Baseball as the season rolls on, getting ready for the postseason. By the way, Major League Baseball just made the announcement a few minutes ago. September 30th will be the first wild card games. And then, of course, the division series will follow after that. Let's bring in Rob. Rob, good to have you back here on NewsWire. One team that will be in the postseason but won't have to play, I don't think, in that first wild card series are the Milwaukee Brewers. My goodness, are they on fire? They've won 10 straight games. They're showing no signs of let up at this point. Their win total on the FanDuel Sportsbook after their win over Pittsburgh yesterday, 7-1, is now 98.5. In fact, I think they're going to go over their preseason season win total here in a few weeks. Like not even, maybe next week. My gosh, that's right. They already have so many wins. They could go over this next week. That's crazy. But again, is this a Rays Guardians type team situation, Rob, where they have this incredible season and then they run into a juggernaut in the postseason and lose? Or do you think they have enough to not just capture the NL Central, but capture maybe a pennant or even get to a World Series?
Well, I remember coming on this show with you, Craig, a few weeks back during the trade deadline, and you asked me who I thought the biggest winner was. I said the Milwaukee Brewers, not because of what they added, but because of what the Cubs didn't add. And that's kind of come to fruition. The Cubs are fading pretty fast. The Brewers are taking a stranglehold on this division like they have over several periods of time over the past couple decades here. And this lineup in particular, compared to those past Brewers teams, does kind of feel like it has that youthful injection in it to potentially catch fire during a postseason run. But it is one of those things that when you're talking about the Brewers, I'm always kind of pressing on the brakes, even when they're playing good baseball, because of kind of that dynamic of potentially not being able to score when it really matters.
Yeah, and I think they definitely have not only the bullpen, but the starters too, and they're doing this without Jackson Chourio and Jacob Mizorowski, folks. Like, I mean, this is like arguably their best two players, or they're not even playing right now for them. It's crazy. Okay, out west, the Padres take care of the Giants, so they move one game back again to the Dodgers because the Dodgers lost to the Angels. They can't beat them, but they beat everybody else. It's very bizarre. 7-4. The Dodgers clearly are going to fall short of their season win total. Maybe they get to 99 wins or 98 or even 100. They're not going to get to 104, 105. No matter what they do, that's out. They probably will win the division. They're minus 450. The Padres are right there. Giants have had a disappointing last couple of months, to say the least. Diamondbacks sort of sold off pieces. Rockies will play toward 2037 when they're ready to win. So is this simply put, Padres and Dodgers going to show down in like the division series or something like that? It's crazy to have a team that is one game out of the division and everyone just assumes they're a wild card.
Right, and it's just because of all the names that the Dodgers have that sort of take over the storylines. But, to your point, the Padres, for like maybe the fifth consecutive deadline at this point, have just kind of made that push to really solidify a team that can get over that little brother hump and beat the Dodgers. And yet again, I've fallen for this trap probably 3 times over at this point, but I do feel like the Padres do have a squad that could theoretically get one up on the Dodgers and potentially secure that NL West. And it really is going to come down to, hey, can Dylan Cease, can Yu Darvish really kind of refine themselves here on the back end of the season? Because if they can't, this Padres lineup, even with those additions, has been a little bit too anemic for me to really kind of get behind them from that standpoint.
Red Sox take on the Astros yesterday. The return of Alex Bregman to Houston doesn't go the Red Sox way, as the Astros take the game 7-6 in this one. And Boston, by the way, still hanging around here and pushing toward the postseason. I know Cleveland is going to really give them a run for their money here in the end. Maybe Tampa Bay gets hot. We'll see. Do you think Boston has enough to get in at this point? I'm not ready to say that. I still feel like there's so many teams involved.
They are definitely one of the more volatile teams that are in the mix, and it really just kind of comes down to the pitching front. I mean, yesterday we saw Garrett Crochet, who's supposed to be their guy who goes out there and shoves, get shelled. And so if that's happening on a more consistent basis, maybe, once out of every 3 starts, the Red Sox, I think, are in real trouble. Now, the youthful injection, the lineup that they have in place with everybody kind of rolling the way that they're rolling right now, I think that's enough to carry them to the postseason and actually do damage once they actually get into the postseason. And I do think it actually starts tonight. That's one of my favorite bets on the board. Red Sox money line going up against Spencer Arrighetti.
Okay, Yankees get a win yesterday against the Twins. They need everyone they could get because they and the Mets, by the way, neither New York teams are having a good time right now. Yankees have certainly just fallen into the position of get into the postseason at this point. And, I guess if we flip over, Luke, to the Rangers Diamondbacks here, with the Rangers getting a win, I mean, that's one of the teams the Yankees are going to have to worry about. New York should be very fortunate and be happy that the Rangers have slumped at the right time. Texas certainly is going to be there.
Absolutely. And the thing with the Rangers, too, is they have the best pitching in all of baseball Like the bullpen, the closer role, the starting rotation when you have Merrill Kelly, Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, like if they get into the dance, that's a three-headed monster that it's going to be tough to contend with. I think most teams or a lot of teams in Major League Baseball would take just one of those guys to kind of spearhead their rotation, and they've got three of them. And who knows what happens if Tyler Mahle comes back into the fold as well. And from that standpoint, the Rangers lineup has gotten a lot better. I would be placing a lot of Rangers futures, and even during this slump, they still have hit well. It's kind of been the pitching that has failed them, surprisingly, but I do think that's kind of more of a closed window in a tunnel sort of, stretch that they're going on here.
Yeah, and in the American League, I mean, this is really a critical moment here for the Cleveland Guardians because as you can see here, while they're plus 210 and Texas is plus 210 and the Yankees are a bigger favorite, take a look at that loss column. Cleveland, same amount of losses as the Yankees and 3 less than the Texas Rangers. Sort of odd there, Rod, to see this discrepancy there.
Yeah, and the Guardians are honestly playing some of the best baseball in all of baseball, but it doesn't really get talked about because they're trotting out, Gavin Williams and Cantillo and these starting pitchers that don't really have a name. They kind of tentatively sold at the deadline too, to an extent, but at the same time, it's hard to ignore that they're playing that well, and the Yankees in particular are that bad. Right now, the Guardians are a better team, and I wouldn't be wanting to kind of back the Yankees long-term over a team like the Guardians at this point.
All right, Rob, enjoy the action tonight. We'll check in again next week. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.
Coming up next, we dive into some college football, Big 12 style with Rich Sermonillo. Don't go away.
You have to imagine it'll be Rory and Tommy. So that is just such a strong foursomes pairing. And then I look over here at the Americans. I'm like, golly, if Patrick Cantlay they just need him to make the team because you got Scotty and Russell. If Xander's going out, you have to him and Pat have been so good in the foursomes. Bryson's going to have to play. Who's he going to play with?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Tigers aren't out of first place. They're still in first place, Tom, by 5 games over the Cleveland Guardians. But you see, last 10 games, Detroit Tigers 5-5. Last 10 games, Guardians. Winners of 9 of 11 games, winners of 5 straight games. They're only 5 back now than the Kansas City Royals, sitting at 8.5 back. The Detroit Tigers, so much fun this year, but now facing adversity with a month and a half left in the season.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
He is not Derrick Henry. He is not one of those special backs in that sense. A really good one that's been outstanding in fantasy for quite some time. But you can also hear the buzz recently about it being more of a split backfield. And if that's so, then Aaron Jones' value takes a hit, Jordan Mason's value goes up, and there's an opportunity at some point if Aaron Jones misses time where you can see Jordan Mason take that backfield over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you draft a quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shadur's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. One of the more intriguing odds conferences going into the college football season is definitely the Big 12. I mean, get a load of this. The favorites to win the Big 12 are all plus 550. Kansas State, Texas Tech, and Arizona State all bunched up. Utah 6-1, Baylor plus 650, TCU plus 850 as well. So is this a down season for the Big 12 conference? Can Rich Rodriguez and West Virginia jump back into this thing like he did many years ago? It still remains to be seen. But for the very latest on the odds and what the Big 12 conference may look like this upcoming season, let's check in with our very own Rich Sermonello, who has a preview of the Big 12 here on NewsWire.
Craig, I want to spend the next couple of minutes professing my love for my favorite conference in college football, the Big 12. This conference makes so much sense to me. Wide open, parity-filled. You got 16 teams. Theoretically, I think all of them have a shot. Last year, Arizona State picked last in the preseason, winds up winning the conference, almost winning a playoff game over Texas. Every bit as wide open heading into 2025. Let's start with the favorites. There are 4 deadlocked at plus 550. By the way, that is the longest odds for a power conference favorite since 2008. Now, the Sun Devils are 1, and they're loaded. 80% of their production is back. It's year 3 for their young head coach, Kenny Dillingham. Sam Levitt is the most NFL-ready quarterback in the country. Year 2 for him as a starter, and a lot of returners on defense. So ASU, one of those plus 550 teams, joined by 3 other teams. The biggest storyline in the Big 12, Craig, throughout the offseason, Texas Tech. They are the poster child of the current state of affairs in college athletics, the NIL era. Texas Tech reportedly spent north of $25 million for their roster, largely through the transfer portal. That's more than Ohio State spent last year to win a national championship. What will that mean on the field? Very talented, but their head coach, Joey McGuire, never in this position before. That, to me, is the big question mark. A lot of good head coaches in this conference. You got Matt Campbell at Iowa State. You got Lance Leipold at Kansas. You got Willie Fritz at Houston. So a lot of good head coaches. Joey McGuire has never been here before. Going to be interesting to see what he could do with that roster. 2 other teams at plus 550, Kansas State, just 9 starters returning, a lot of question marks. We'll learn a lot about the Wildcats a little over a week in Dublin. They open up against Iowa State in Farmageddon. And then Utah. Utah's going to be a big mystery. 5-7 last year. Kyle Whittingham usually doesn't have those kinds of seasons. Went out and got a quarterback, Devin Dampier from New Mexico, along with New Mexico's offensive coordinator, Jason Beck. So that offense should be a lot better than they were last season. Now, where is the value? I've got 2 teams for you. Baylor, first off, plus 650, not particularly long, but I like Baylor over 7.5 wins for the season. Best offense in the conference, best offensive backfield, and Dave Aranda always has a good defense. And then Houston, I mentioned Willie Fritz. Year 1 last year was rebuilding. Year 2, he turns things around, over 5.5 wins. Love Houston to be a potential surprise in the Big 12 this year.
All right, thanks, Rich. It definitely seems like the Big 12 is wide open going into the college football season. And again, all of our coverage here on SportsGrid, getting you ready for the openers coming up in week 0. That is 1 week, folks, from Saturday. College football almost here. All right, over to the National Football League. Couple of news and notes. ESPN reporting once again, Matthew Stafford not practicing again with the Rams. So I'm sure some more clarity coming on that later in the week, but needless to say, not going to play in this week's preseason game. It goes without saying. In addition, the Jets making an announcement that backup quarterback Tyrod Taylor had meniscus surgery, so he's going to miss a few weeks, and also wide Alan Lazard going to miss several weeks as well. So Jets could be in the market for a wide receiver. No doubt about that. Keep an eye on those injuries in the NFL as we get ready for week 2 of the NFL preseason. If you want to follow all the action with us, download the SportsGrid app. It's available for iOS and Android. Take out your phone and scan that QR code. Live streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And by the way, folks, absolutely free. Nothing to pay for that app. Again, available for iOS and Android, both phones, news, notes, information, picks against the spread, and all the latest updated odds as well. It is the SportsGrid app, and it is available now. You know who else is available? That's Joe Pisapia of our very own Fantasy Sports Today, Fantasy Pros and the Fantasy Black Book. Joe's going to join us next. We'll go over the very latest at the wide receiver position, especially the young wide receivers looking to make an impact into the upcoming fantasy football campaign. NewsWire on SportsGrid rolls on right after this.
You have to imagine it'll be Rory and Tommy. So that is just such a strong foursomes pairing. And then I look over here at the Americans, I'm like, golly, if Patrick Cantlay, they just need him to make the team because you got Scotty and Russell. If Xander's going out, you have to him and Pat have been so good in the foursomes. Bryson's going to have to play. Who's he going to play with?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Tigers aren't out of first place. They're still in first place, Tom, by 5 games over the Cleveland Guardians. But you see, last 10 games, Detroit Tigers 5-5. Last 10 games, Guardians. Winners of 9 of 11 games, winners of 5 straight games. They're only 5 back now than the Kansas City Royals, sitting at 8.5 back. The Detroit Tigers, so much fun this year, but now facing adversity with a month and a half left in the season.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
He is not Derrick Henry. He is not one of those special backs in that sense. A really good one that's been outstanding in fantasy for quite some time. But you can also hear the buzz recently about it being more of a split backfield. And if that's so, then Aaron Jones' value takes a hit, Jordan Mason's value goes up, and there's an opportunity at some point, if Aaron Jones misses time, where you can see Jordan Mason take that backfield over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you draft a quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shadur's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It is Fantasy Football Draft Month. Let's bring in Joe Pisapia. You can catch him every Sunday morning with Matt Stryker on Fantasy Sports Today. Also, don't forget to pick up your Black Book edition here of 2025 and also catch Joe on all of his streaming platforms, including Fantasy Pros. Joe now joins us to go over the very latest in the NFL. I don't know if did I miss anything, Joe, in terms of this time of the year? I mean, you're doing baseball too, I think. I should have mentioned that as well, right?
No, August 1st is when I get released from baseball for the rest of football. Because, training camp begins and I got to get into, I got to get in shape for football. That's the whole thing. I got to be running the sprints. Occasionally I hold in. Sometimes I hold out. It depends on my mood. But typically, once we get to August 1st, it's big attention over to the football side of things because really, this is it. This is draft season. We're in the thick of it right now, and we got so many mock draft shows going on at Fantasy Pros. We got our Fantasy Fest next week, so a lot going on. Of course, updates to the Fantasy Black Book on Amazon. So it's full football mode right now for me, Craig Mish. I don't know about you.
Yeah, running sprints and doing all that. I mean, you're a bigger liar than Sean McVay. I finally found one here on the show. All right, fair enough. So, all right, story for another day. You had that pegged in the Super Bowl, by the way, years ago. You were the one that said it. I was against you on that one. All right, so let's go to wide receivers. Let's start courtesy of Fantasy Pros. Take a look at the average draft position of some up-and-coming receivers in the NFL. We have a lot of rookies here that I'm looking at here. Egbuka, McMillan, Torrey Horton is another one. I know that you mentioned him to me early in the draft season as well. He's looked pretty good in the preseason. Where do you want to start here as far as any of these guys? I'll open the floor to you.
Well, you can start with the ADP, and I think what's interesting about all these guys is that they are going a little bit later than I think their actual overall value is. So, early in drafts, especially, with a lot of rookies or even second-year players that people don't have a real gauge about, the average casual fantasy football fan didn't watch a lot of college football, most likely. He isn't really aware of who Tedero McMillan is. And Ted McMillan was the first guy selected there in that wide receiver group with good reason. He had a great career in Arizona. He is set to be the target hog, the alpha dog wide receiver. You saw some really nice rapport between he and Bryce Young earlier this weekend. So I think what you're looking for, obviously, always when it comes to wide receivers, you're looking for volume, you're looking for value. I always talk about this on my shows where if you can get a guy you could draft as a wide receiver 3 that ends up performing like a wide receiver 2, and a guy like you draft as a wide receiver 2 who performs like a 1 sometimes, that's how you win weeks and ultimately how you win leagues. And I think the first guy on that list, Ted McMillan, is a great example of something like that. He's being drafted somewhere around a 2/3, depending on the depth of your league. But I think the amount of volume he's going to see, I think there's negativity, based upon the culture of the Carolina Panthers with good cause because it's been such a bad team for so long. People say, oh, do I really want to be investing heavily in the Carolina Panthers offense? But if you paid attention to the end of last year, this was a team that covered a lot of games, put up a lot of points. They still have a terrible defense, so they're still going to have to push the football late in the games, and that's a good thing from a fantasy perspective. So the first guy on that list being Ted McMillan, to me, is a great example of a guy who's going to get a lot of target volume, a lot of upside. He's by far the most talented in the group that they have. It's a crowded room, but to me, he stands out quite a bit in the fact that you can, once again, draft him as a 3, and he ends up performing like a 2, or maybe even the upside could be the season that Brian Thomas Jr. had last year that a lot of people did not see coming with Trevor Lawrence. He kind of came out of nowhere, had a massive season, was a league winner, and McMillan could do just that again.
Yeah, I want to ask you one thing that I had heard, just following around what people are talking about on social media with this stuff, is that maybe some folks are not drafting McMillan, follow me here, McMillan as high because of the season that Harrison had a year ago with Arizona. I mean, do you take advantage of that situation, or is that like a real thing last year?
I think it's a very different set of circumstances with a very different sort of coordinator. I think also a very different quarterback situation too, So I think with Bryce Young, the idea is, because he's a smaller quarterback, they're just like Kyler Murray, but I think he's more of a pocket passer guy, whereas Kyler Murray's more apt to run sometimes. I think the problem with Marvin Harrison Jr.'s usage last year was they didn't really move him around a lot. The route tree, if you look at the depth of the targets that he was getting and what he was doing in terms of running routes, Matt Harmon does this great thing called reception perception. And when you dig into that, you see basically he was getting real good at running deep routes. And that's not exactly what Marvin Harrison Jr. excelled at Ohio State. This is a guy that, understands the route tree, can work underneath, can work in the slot, can do a lot of things, but they didn't utilize him properly. And I think that there was some tension there potentially too. You saw Kyler Murray last year in that press conference. Well, my job isn't to just get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. I disagree with that. I think when an organization drafts a guy that high, that is your job. You see when you get the ball to Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, good things happen. Well, if you get the ball more to Marvin Harrison Jr., good things will be happening too. The problem was, I think the usage and the way they utilize him in the offense, not great, but I think Dave Canales, who is a guy that, worked with the Buccaneers, right? A guy that has fixed Geno Smith over the years, Baker Mayfield rehab, and now Bryce Young rehab. I think he understands the importance of having a guy like Ted McMillan. I think Ted McMillan profile-wise fits a lot of the Mike Evans mold, and I think his usage could be very similar to what you saw Tampa do a couple years ago when Canales was OC. But it's a great question. I think that is going to scare people off, and it should. Harrison was probably going a little too early last year because he was a rookie, but now I think the opposite. Ted McMillan, I think the overreaction, I think he's going too late.
Where does Emeka Egbuka fit in Tampa Bay's offense? I saw him have a good game this past week in the preseason, and his totals for the season, the props are super low. 650 receiving yards. To win Rookie of the Year, he's 25-1. There's going to come a point, Joe, I assume, where he's going to start because neither Godwin or Evans play a full season. They generally miss like a game or two, although Evans is headed to the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But where does he fit in if all guys are healthy on this offense?
Well, Hall of Famer Mike Evans hasn't fallen off the cliff yet. But, of course, age comes for all of us except Craig Mish. Craig Mish still looks exactly the same. He hasn't changed. In 20 years that I've known him, he looks exactly the same. But, again, I think he came in as an insurance policy. And I think what's so telling is the Buccaneers did a good job of drafting what they thought was the best player on the board. Now, it happened to be a wide receiver, which on paper looks like something they don't quote-unquote need. When you start to dig a little deeper, I think that need is there, especially if you're trying to project long-term and make this a sustainable organization that's going to be competitive, not just the last 2 years, but the next 2 or 3 years. And Mike Evans is an older wide receiver. And as you said, that he has had some hamstring issues in the time that have slowed him down in recent years. He still gets that 1,000-yard mark every single year somehow. But Chris Godwin, on the other hand, that's the one that's starting to worry me because we're not getting a lot of good reports out of that camp right now. We're probably leaning towards him starting the year on the PUP list. And at the very least, Egbuka is going to get some early work. And all of the buzz right now around camp is that he has looked great with Baker Mayfield. This is another Ohio State guy, right? Another guy from wide receiver U. And I think those guys typically do very well in the league. So I think Egbuka is a guy to watch who can really help you out early in leagues. And then if he solidifies himself in that offense, he could potentially even grow over time. Again, Godwin's not going anywhere because they paid him, but the health of Godwin's in question. And then there's even guys like Ricky Pearsall, right, who's on that list, who was a rookie last year, didn't play, unfortunately was shot last year, eventually came back. He had a couple good showings at the end of the year, and if you look at the rest of that wide receiver room, Brandon Ayuk is not starting the year on time. He's going to be on the PUP. You've also got Juwan Jennings, who came off a great year, but he's kind of a veteran, journeyman kind of guy. I don't know if necessarily those are the guys I want to rely on, but if you look at the ADP of Pearsall, he's very cheap. He's very cost-effective, going somewhere in the mid-40s at wide receiver. This is a guy that could easily become a wide receiver too, just based on volume and considering what's around him. Now, a lot of that has to do with the health of Christian McCaffrey. We all know that. George Kittle's still in this offense as well. But I think what's so interesting about Pearsall is it doesn't cost you a lot to find out, but the upside is huge. The schedule is easy, and there's a lot to like, I think, with the value of Ricky Pearsall, a player that I think slipped through the cracks after a quiet rookie season based upon some unfortunate set of circumstances.
Let's end with a second-year player, Demario Douglas in New England, who had his moments last season, Joe, and they're predicting a lot more moments coming this season. But, you know, my hesitation is just simply with any New England wide receiver. I mean, this is just going on years and years of guys getting pumped up and not really producing much over the course of the whole season.
Well, look, I mean, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, those were guys who were pulling down 120 catches a year. So, I mean, you're talking about in PPR leagues, if Demario Douglas fits that role now in this Josh McDaniels offense that has been reinstalled, and that seems like that's what's going on, this could be a very good late pick for a lot of teams, especially in full-point PPR leagues. So, again, it's more about the offense that's now here or back again for New England and Douglas's role in it.
It could be with Josh McDaniels. Joe will continue with us next.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you draft a quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shador's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Jalen Lane, 4th round receiver from Virginia Tech, who's a dynamic slot receiver. Run after the catch. He's had a phenomenal camp. Really great offseason. He is really gifted. And obviously with McLaurin not practicing, he's getting a lot more of a look.
Right.
Now, the problem is, without McLaurin, they're not very deep at the outside receiver position. But Jalen Lane is a stud talent. I'm telling you, this kid should have gone higher.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
He's going to regress a little potentially in touchdowns, but his role's not going to change. There's no other superstar on this team besides Josh Allen. So to me, James Cook, they need James Cook if the Buffalo Bills are going to repeat in that division again. They need him to be that guy in the offense because there isn't another star around Josh Allen. So James Cook is as close as it gets. I'm sorry. It's not Khalil Shakir. It doesn't look like it's ever going to be Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
We continue on with Joe Pisapia of Fantasy Sports Today. You can catch Joe and Matt Stryker each and every Sunday morning before the games here on SportsGrid. That'll go on all the way through the Super Bowl starting now. So make sure you check Joe out along with Matt. And Joe is back with us here, and we're going to go through some of the latest notes in the NFL, see if it relates at all to fantasy, Joe. Let's start off with this peculiar situation here with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I do want to mention one thing here. Because the Falcons are one of 4 teams that play on Friday, we're going to get more news and notes from those 4 teams and the other teams that don't have to play until the weekend on Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday. So I just want to be clear on that. I don't want to crush Raheem Morris right out of the gate without, saying that that's the case. But now that I have, why in the world would their rookie quarterback not play at all in the preseason? Like 0? Like this is the one team that I thought would play him, hold out Kirk Cousins because you don't want to get that guy hurt because you want to trade him at some point. The only Joe, am I thinking this correctly that they may have some trades lined up here for Cousins and they just don't want to shake the tree at all because they don't know who their backup is going to be? It's the only thing that I can think of here that they secretly have deals that we don't know about.
I would tend to agree. That's probably the scenario there. And I would want Michael Penix, who I think has some upside potentially as your, late second or, even better, your third quarterback in a super flex league. But yeah, to me, especially with a shortened preseason, I don't understand not getting guys reps. Now, look, a lot of these teams do these joint practices, right? They're doing like one of these joint ones with the Titans and they're running things. So like, I understand that the preparation that I think we are all used to, where the preseason games are eventually when you get the guys out there and get the reps. I don't know if the NFL coaches and the NFL organizations look at it the way we used to look at it or the way we're accustomed to looking at it. I think the landscape has changed so much over the last couple of years. You used to have those 4 preseason games and the track was very simple. In the first game, nobody really plays. Second game, the starters play a series or 2. Then usually they play a whole half in the third. And then the fourth game, you don't see anybody. It's a ghost town because everyone's just trying to get to the regular season. Now with less time, there's less opportunity for reps. And I think sometimes it's unfortunate because I think when you look at the early September football, it can be a little sloppy. And I think it's because we don't have the 2-a-days anymore. We don't have the things that we're used to seeing. We don't have as much repetition time for these guys. Now, look, there's the OTAs, there's the other things they've been working in the offenses, but that in-game action I think is very different than anything else. So I'm with you. I think it's a little suspect, a little strange. It would not shock me if Cousins was somebody that a team wanted to go after because I don't think he's completely done necessarily. He could help certain teams in the NFL, I think, right now. But I do think for fantasy value, I think it is a little concerning that Penix isn't taking any reps. Again, it's not a big deal. It's only a super flex kind of issue. But it does make you just slightly hesitant and going, okay, well, how's that relationship with Drake London going to be and Kyle Pitt's going to be and, Bijan's going to be Bijan. But I think you're right. I think there's probably a little bit more behind the scenes action going on here than we realize.
Yeah, I mean, last season forget this time, after week 3 or week 4, if I would have told you that not only is Cousins the backup in Atlanta, is not even playing at all, I don't know. I kind of feel like, you're telling me that Andy Dalton has had gigs and Joe Flacco has had gigs and Kirk Cousins can't get a gig. I got to say, I think night before the season, Joe, something like that, he ends up on another team. I think that's my opinion to start the year. Okay, so Jordan Love, do we need to spend a lot of time on this? I don't know. I'm not worried. Left hand, right? Like this is much ado about nothing. Not a knee, not a shoulder, right? Like with Green Bay just telling us that this has happened, we'll just check back in for week 1 of the season, right?
Yeah, again, missing some reps, but I'm not too concerned. I think it's all about that lower body of Jordan Love staying healthy. Last year in week 1, he had that ankle injury, and he was never right the entire season. I think when you watch him play, he looked very uncomfortable in the pocket always. I think he came back too soon because he was trying to be the good leader and trying to soldier on. But I think at the end of the day, he was just fighting a losing battle. So, look, this is not too concerning for me. Again, Jordan Love is a guy that is only really super flex relevant in the single quarterback leagues. He's typically a guy going undrafted unless you're in a very deep league. But it's non-throwing hand. It shouldn't be too big of an issue. You got to keep that lower half healthy, though. That's crucial, though. Jordan Love's success in his first year as a starter came a lot with his ability to move in the pocket, get loose, make those throws that he needed to. That mobility was not there last year, and you could see it. It was obvious. That's why they relied so heavily on the run game and Josh Jacobs last year. So a healthier Jordan Love this year could mean just a little less workload, I think, for Josh Jacobs. So that's also something to keep in mind in fantasy circles. I don't see him repeating quite the same amount of volume. I think they're putting Jacobs at a huge risk if they do.
Let's get to the NFL's Coach of the Year. I want to talk about some odds for the Coach of the Year in the NFL. And I find this one a little fascinating because I'm seeing here all first-year coaches that are the favorites in the NFL. Like how is that possible? Like you're telling me that nobody who was a coach last year could win Coach of the Year this year? So Ben Johnson of the Bears is the favorite, followed by Mike Vrabel, Liam Cohen at 10-1, Aaron Glenn 13-1, and then Pete Carroll in Las Vegas, Joe, at 14-1. Why is it all first-year guys? Can't it be somebody going into their second year? Can't it be Canales or someone else here? Do you have any interest in any of these? Like, I don't think that there's a jump for any of these. Maybe Liam Cohen, I could see maybe Jacksonville.
Well, I mean, it's not first year for Pete Carroll. He's not a first-year head coach, neither is Mike Vrabel. They're just first-year guys. in all fairness. So there's a lot of experience there with those two guys, especially with Pete Carroll. But to your point, again, you're trying to write a script now. The interesting one is Liam Cohen. I don't believe this, but I've heard a lot of smart people talking about, what, the Jaguars could be sneaky good, and that division is
Yeah, I've heard that too.
always wide open. I think we know that. So one bounce of the ball, a couple games, all of a sudden the Jaguars start to, be ahead of the curve. I don't necessarily see that happening, but you can write a script for all the other teams in this division to fail. So why not for the Jaguars to succeed? So that's an interesting return on investment, I think, at 1,000 there, plus 1,000 side. Mike Vrabel plus 750. I think what he's doing potentially is, turning this whole organization back around. And I think from the NFL media standpoint, you can already tell, like, the timeline is already blowing up with Mike Vrabel stuff. We're talking about all the press conferences, all the Mike Vrabel this and all that. So there's a lot of buzz about him reshaping the Patriots. And if they win 10 games or somehow sneak into playoffs there, I could see Vrabel also being the guy. I don't think it's Ben Johnson. I don't think it's Aaron Glenn or Pete Carroll. I think the interesting one to me, Liam Cohen, Mike Vrabel, those are the two shots I would take. And outside of that, the other one would be old man Jim Harbaugh. Let's not forget about him. If the Chargers, even with Rashawn Slater out, should somehow take over that division, I think he would get a lot of looks for that award as well. Unseating the dynasty, quote unquote, of the Chiefs is not an easy thing to do in that division. I think that would garner a lot of respect with the voting media.
I got Brian Schottenheimer, Joe.
Well, that's your ticket, not mine. So I'm going to let you.
You never know. You never know.
You never know.
All right, we'll see you Sunday. Have a great week.
Thanks.
We'll wrap it up next.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you draft a quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shadur's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Jalen Lane, 4th-round receiver from Virginia Tech, who's a dynamic slot receiver. Run after the catch. He's had a phenomenal camp. Really great offseason. He is really gifted. And obviously with McLaurin not practicing, he's getting a lot more of a look.
Right.
Now, the problem is, without McLaurin, they're not very deep at the outside receiver position. But Jalen Lane is a stud talent. I'm telling you, this kid should have gone higher.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
He's going to regress a little potentially in touchdowns, but his role's not going to change. There's no other superstar on this team besides Josh Allen. So to me, James Cook, they need James Cook if the Buffalo Bills are going to repeat in that division again. They need him to be that guy in the offense because there isn't another star around Josh Allen. So James Cook is as close as it gets. I'm sorry. It's not Khalil Shakir. It doesn't look like it's ever going to be Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Welcome back to NewsWire. We're going to talk some Kansas City Chiefs here to wrap up the show. And also, for those of you who found the World Wide Web in the 1990s, and I know this goes far back for a lot of you, this will mean something to you, like it did for me. It's time now for Last Licks. There have been a lot of publications this season that are taking shots. And, they're not necessarily taking shots at the Kansas City Chiefs, but it seems to me more than ever, there are a lot of folks who are saying that the Chiefs dynasty is about to come to an end. Let's keep it real. They did not have a great regular season. I think you would probably say they were pretty fortunate to get to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, they lost. That game between Buffalo could have went either way. A call at the end of the game. We won't go back there. So Andy Reid is sort of taking this in stride a little bit. He was asked, does he think this is like coming to the end of the Chiefs dynasty, which has been absolutely fantastic over the last decade. Super Bowl after Super Bowl, playoffs after playoffs, division after division. And Andy Reid said, basically, you got to ignore all the noise. And the reason why he says that is not because it's maybe the end of the Chiefs dynasty or not. He just says it's no fun. It is no fun to read what everybody else is saying, and then the guys can't have fun playing football if they're paying attention to this other stuff. As soon as Andy Reid retires, and that's going to be coming here, folks, I got to tell you, in the next couple of years, don't get it twisted, Andy Reid's going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer as a head coach on his first shot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, that's a foregone conclusion. He's been awesome. And this even shows you why more, because he's sort of willing to say, hey, look, maybe this is the end. I don't know. But we can't pay attention to that stuff because we can't have fun playing if we do. Gotta love Andy Reid. One of the best coaches, if not the best of all time. He's up there. All right. Speaking of the Chiefs, this was a big surprise yesterday. I don't know if you've ever heard of the New Height podcast. This is a podcast that's put on with Travis Kelce and his brother Jason. Well, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the New Height podcast had a very special guest. And that guest was the person that gets more attention during Chiefs games than Patrick Mahomes. That, of course, is Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift goes on the podcast yesterday and makes the announcement. I mean, this is shocking to me. If you would have said to me, what is the over-under on Taylor Swift's releases, albums, etc., I would have said 6, 7, something along those lines. This is Taylor Swift's 12th album that is coming out. That is crazy. She announces that the new one is called The Life of a Showgirl and does it so all the attention for the Kelce brothers goes to that podcast. And by the way, if you go to iTunes right now and see what the most downloaded sports podcast is, hello, #1 podcast, of course, Travis Kelce and his brother as well. So those of you who are into Taylor Swift, the announcement was made, and I have not listened to it, don't know that I will, but definitely a big story. All right, finally, let's end with this. If you are somebody that was around in the 1990s, that was the first foray into the World Wide Web and the internet. Do you remember that logo there? For a lot of you, you have no idea what I'm even talking about. America Online. Do you remember AOL? Do you remember the signing in and creating your username, creating an email and going in a chat room? You remember that stuff in the 90s? I certainly do. Well, AOL made an official announcement yesterday. Now get this. They're shutting down their dial-up service that they have had for 30 years. I did not even know that you could still even dial in to America Online. Apparently, they took a survey back in 2021 and found out that approximately 1,000 people in the country, 1,000, that's it, were using the dial-up service in 2021. Now they say that there's probably a handful. That's it, 5, 6, 10 people still using AOL. As of the end of September, you can't use it. AOL is going away. Now, I will say this. I still have an AOL email. I don't use it that often, but I still do have it, and I still do have some things connected to it. I wonder if AOL is going to be doing away with their email as well. It still remains to be seen, but end of an era, end of 30 era. A lot of you who are streaming the show have never even heard of that. I understand that. I'm older, so I remember it. Remember dialing in, sitting at my home computer. That was the only way. You got the internet in the past. All right, that'll do it for our show today. Some great guests here on the program. Very specifically, want to thank Joe Pisapia from Fantasy Sports Today and also Fantasy Black Book. Also, thanks to Rob Donaldson from Underdog, Jacob Kamaker from USA Today, and thanks to Keith Stewart covering the PGA Tour for us. For my director, Luke, and my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. We got some great programming coming up for you later in the day, and don't forget to catch In-Game Live and Game Time Decisions exclusively here on our SportsGrid network. I'll see you back here for our next edition of NewsWire on Wednesday. Until then, have a great day, everyone. See you then.